scene at this time.
Okay, and there's Corin. You guys just let me know if you want to go to Corin. Okay, go ahead. Corin, go ahead.
Gathered here outside as the parents are coming out with their children. Did manage to talk to one more of the parents here, and they said that they knew of at least a couple of kids who had been shot but had survived, but beyond that, don't really have any updates here. It does feel a little intrusive, like I said earlier, to try to talk to these folks as they leave what's probably the worst moment of their children's lives. And, you know, they're all kind of clutching their kids pretty tightly and, you know, just trying to embrace them as they walk out of here. But, you know, that was, from what they said, inside the mass, it was an all-school mass. So it's, you know, every student at this school. And so all of them, at least to some extent, witnessed this, whether they saw exactly what was happening or just could hear it. They were all there. So you can see all of these folks who were uninjured who are walking out. But again, it's a very emotional time for them. A lot of these kids walking out of here in tears or just, you know, with, you know, grimacing on their faces, and it's, you know, you can imagine why. It's a pretty tough situation for all of them. Yeah, I don't know much more I can add to that, but you can see a lot of them right there, and it's pretty tough.
Yeah, thanks, Corin. And to have to, as you mentioned, you know, walk past people who are onlookers or who are there who are concerned, but also cameras, and it's a really tough situation. Thank you, Corin. We'll revisit that in a second. And you can go ahead and cut that mic for us. Thank you. I just wanted to share some more information, and this is the first time that we're able to share this kind of information. This is coming from a police alert that went out about 30 minutes ago, so at about 9:30, from the City of Richfield Police Department. So this is what was sent to that community. Annunciation Church area police are responding to an active shooter call. We now know that the shooter is dead. Officers are reporting 20 victims. A man dressed in all black and armed with a rifle was reported at the scene. EMS has requested a mass casualty response, and fire crews are bringing in additional resources. As I said earlier, mass casualty does not mean deaths. It just means victims of some kind. Fire crews are bringing in additional resources. Initial information indicated that the suspect shooter is no longer a threat. That we know to be true now. Out of an abundance of caution, they are asking just people to stay out of that area because there's a lot of work to be done, you know, to complete this investigation and move through what they need to do this morning.
And of course, one of our big questions going forward will be timeline of all of this. 8:27 was when that first initial call of a shooting was reported, and then we had crews live at the scene by about 9 a.m. So of course, part of the information gathering that we're learning is, you know, what happened between that initial call at 8:27 and when we arrived there at 9 a.m. When this shooter was taken down, as we understand that they've been killed, and that there is no longer a threat to the public. But obviously that'll be one of the big questions. How long was that man in there? 20 victims at this time. As Amy mentioned, that does not mean that 20 people were killed, but at least 20 people, victims of some kind, whether that was they were hit by gunfire or injured in some other way. But again, Richfield Police saying that there was a man who was dressed in all black, armed with a rifle, was reported at the scene. Potentially, when we look at the schedule for the school, these students, this is a pre-K through 8 school, a school affiliated with the church next door. They're technically not connected. There's a little bit of a lot with some trees in between them, but according to the school schedule at 8:15, those students were scheduled to be in mass. So that will be another question, of course, that we have going forward, if this was a situation where the shooter entered the school building or the church building. And of course, if you have all of these people gathered in one area, you think of the chaos of it all. And so again, what happened between that 8:27 when those first calls came in and at 9 o'clock, at least when our crews appeared on the scene, it appeared the way that we saw folks coming and going from the crime scene, the way that we saw the mayor let inside of that crime tape, even the fire and EMS let inside that scene, that maybe at that point the active threat situation was tampered down at that time. So again, these will all be questions that we'll be asking law enforcement here when they give us an update, but obviously their focus right now is reuniting these students with their families, getting them off of campus, getting the students who are okay back with their parents and getting them home, of course, to start some of the healing. Just some of these extremely powerful images that we've seen all morning of folks reuniting and hugging outside of this crime scene.
Yeah, the neighborhood, I'm sure, is really shaken by this as well. And you know, again, how does this happen here? These things like this don't happen here, and in our quiet neighborhood at a small Catholic school.
When we heard Corin say, when he was out talking to neighbors, they said they heard so much gunfire. Some of the folks that Corin talked to thought it couldn't have possibly been an active shooter situation. They said that's just too much gunfire. Was it a construction project? They weren't sure at
Roofing
first.
project in early morning. Yeah.
Kind of just rocked that entire neighborhood of the amount of gunshots that we heard at that time. And again, one of those big questions: how did that shooter get into whatever building they were in? How long were they active before they were taken down? How long did it take law enforcement to get there? 8:27 was that first call into law enforcement, according to the information we have this morning.
And again, we continue to just watch just what Corin said it best. It feels really intrusive because we know our camera is there. But I think if we can just, take from this, just watch this, and then maybe it will impact some sort of change.
It's real. It's
so
what's happening down there for these families right now,
and stop this kind of violence. We don't know anything about the shooter yet, other than the shooter is no longer a factor here. The shooter is dead, which is really important. We don't have any information yet confirmed on victims, but we do know that at 10:30 here, coming up in about 25 minutes, we are expected to have a news conference. I imagine it will be led by the governor, maybe the mayor as well. We saw Mayor Fry early on in this scene, literally running, under that tape and getting to the heart of that scene early on as well. So.
I will be curious too. We know that we have federal agencies on hand as well. If it's something that they will kind of take over this investigation, or if we'll hear from Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara, but we know the FBI and the ATF are confirmed to be there on scene as part of this investigation. So as Amy mentioned, within the next half hour or so, we do expect our first kind of official on-camera update from law enforcement officers. But as you can see right now, busy as we don't know how many students attended this school, but we know it was pre-K through 8. So you cover a lot of age ranges and grades there. And it appears that their focus right now is just getting those kids back with their families, getting them away from this scene so they can really dig into their investigation and help the folks who need that medical attention. When we started our broadcast here on this at about 9 a.m., we did see an ambulance with the lights on leaving the scene. So presumably some folks who were here and who were injured have already been taken to the hospital. And we do have a crew down at HCMC downtown monitoring that situation, as well as we potentially see more folks getting some of the medical attention. But you do see a lot of students on 2 feet, obviously distressed. Obviously, it's been a horrific morning, but are getting out of there and are back with their families this morning.
As you're looking at the bottom of the screen, and as we've been saying, 20 victims in Minneapolis school shooting, and I just want to reiterate, this is information that is coming from Richfield Police, who had put out a police alert about 45 minutes ago or so, and at that point we believed that the shooter was dead. Now it's confirmed that the shooter is dead. But anytime we've unfortunately been through this enough, anytime you see numbers this early, oftentimes they can change. A lot of information comes out early. So again, we don't have any confirmed information on how many victims, the extent of injuries, if there are any deaths, anything like that. We anticipate that we'll get that information from the governor coming up here in about 25 minutes or so. Go ahead.
I was just to say, we're looking at right now in our small box here to the left, the map showing you where this is. This is in South Minneapolis. This would be southwest, so it's west of 35W. It's south of the chain of lakes, off of that East Diamond Lake Road exit. And now that I'm looking at the map and putting this together, I presume Richfield, it's right near the border to Richfield. And in that statement that we got from Richfield Police, they said that they had some of their law enforcement responding to this as well. I assume because of proximity. It's very clear right away when we arrived on the scene that there was a huge response to this. I mean, as many as 65 units responding. which told us right away that this was definitely an elevated situation, a more serious situation. Of course, anything involving a church or a school or a large gathering of people, you're going to see that even bigger law enforcement response. But that map there just gives you an idea. It's the Annunciation Catholic Church and School there west of 35W near Lyndale Avenue and East Diamond Lake Road in South Minneapolis.
Our Corin Hoggard has been on the scene for us, our Saquon there as well, and Corin a little bit earlier, his brother happens to live in that neighborhood and went to his house, parked there, and started just talking to folks as we were outside that perimeter about a half a block. So we were gathering information, and one of the things that just keeps sticking out to me is that these neighbors said that they heard, and he described it as a tremendous amount of gunfire. And it's just chilling to think about, so much so that they didn't even believe it was gunfire, as we continue to look at families being reunited about a half a block away here as they remove themselves from the scene and leave campus to be reunited with families. There's a staging area nearby where friends and family are gathering, but most of these families just really taking their children and just going home. And it's such a traumatic. Such a traumatic morning for everybody, and also want to think about the first responders who are there as well. Those who are having to respond to this. It's, you know, their jobs are never ever easy. They never know what they're going to run into when they wake up in the morning, and this is definitely some of the worst of it. So they're also in our thoughts here today as we continue to follow these developments. Again, more information hopefully coming in about 20 minutes in a press conference.
Yeah, and we'd heard that some of the students, just initially after this happened, they were ushered into the gymnasium of the school. And again, we still don't have confirmation this morning where exactly, which building the shooting happened in, if it happened in the church or separate from the church, the school building. They basically share a property. There's a little bit of a grove of trees, you could say, in between the two. But just thinking about these kids and these families too, they just started school on Monday, and here we are on Wednesday dealing with this and imagining the quick response from the educators who were there on scene, the folks who work there, already just into the school year. I'm sure they didn't even have a chance to do some of their basic drills that they do, their safety drills and going over safety protocol. So obviously, just horrific for them. We understand 8:27 is when the first calls came in, and now here at just after 10 o'clock, we're seeing a lot of folks leaving the scene. That unification. We're hearing from the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office talking about that unification area, saying families and students can go to that reunification zone, but they are asking people to stay out of that area. We know earlier the exit from 35W to East Diamond Lake Road heading in that direction was closed down. It was only open for first responders. They're just trying to keep folks out of that area, and I'm sure prioritize getting folks with children at that school or even loved ones who may work at the school, being able to get them there to the scene. But we have seen so many folks, what it looks like from the neighborhood, out there checking things out. As Amy mentioned, we are hearing from some neighbors who said they heard a lot of gunshots, and the information that we have from Richfield Police is that there was a man dressed in all black who entered with a rifle, and we do understand that that man has since been taken down, that there's not an immediate threat to the community right now. Oh, just more of those hugs and reunification, as you can see, students getting to leave that area now.
Yeah. Again, so bittersweet to see this, and as parents, your heart just you just can't even really describe the feeling, or caregivers, or hearing from people who have children in other, just even Catholic schools in the area, and again, we don't know what a motive here was, but it's just touching on so many different levels for so many different people, and it really, it's really something you just don't. You don't ever want to have to think about, and here we are in the throes of it as we see things like this happening in other places, not here. So just a lot to process here.
I do want to point out, while this is happening in South Minneapolis, we've heard from President Donald Trump and Homeland Secretary Security Kristi Noem, who both say that they are aware of the situation and monitoring. We've also heard from Senators Timothy Smith and Amy Klobuchar, who said that they are aware and monitoring the situation. And I really only bring that up just because it gives you a sense of the elevated level of all this. This is from the president. It says, I have been fully briefed on the tragic shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The FBI quickly responded, and they are on the scene. The White House will continue to monitor the terrible situation. Please join me in praying for everyone involved. So that just gives you an idea of the level that this has been raised to. And we're hearing from Richfield Police this morning, potentially 20 victims. We don't know if that means students, if that means staff. We do understand that this was a shooting. We can confirm that. We don't know if all 20 of these potential injuries are gunshot wounds, are people who have been shot, but we are expecting a press conference here in the next 15 minutes or so. And I will say, everybody wants to know the timeline, the motive, exactly what happened. Usually these first press conferences, it's just the very basic preliminary information, letting us know that there's no longer a threat to the community, that they're helping out the victims who have been hurt. But it could still be a while here this morning before we have some of that information about, say, a shooter, about how they entered, what their motive would be. All of that could come much later, but at least some sort of our first official on-camera update expected here at 10:30. And Amy, maybe you know this. We don't know who will be leading this press conference at this time, or do we understand that the governor will be there?
We don't know who for sure. I'm kind of thinking back to the last sort of the last violence that we had, where we had so many interagencies involved. Of course, the death of the Hortmans a couple of months ago, and it's my understanding that it's the same sort of interagency response and protocol. So, the governor led that one. I'm just thinking he might lead this one as well if he is even in town, available. I'm not sure, but I would anticipate that he would be part of this in some way, shape, or form.
And we did see the mayor there on the scene. Maybe about an hour or so ago. Says potentially we could see them. We are getting some updates here of now just other schools responding to this. I know I had a friend who is a teacher, and their students don't start until next week. But teachers were there on campus getting ready, and they went on a short lockdown. Just, of course, not really knowing the situation of what was going on. And now we're hearing from some St. Joseph Catholic school students, St. Thomas, other Catholic schools who say that they're just going to keep their doors locked out of an abundance of caution today. And these are even schools in St. Paul who are hearing this news. And just, again, we understand the shooter's dead. Law enforcement saying there's not an active threat to the public, but so many other places just taking a precaution. Even hearing from folks like the Brooklyn Park Police Department who are saying this, Brooklyn Center, Police Department, talking about how this deeply impacts the entire region. You see law enforcement agencies from surrounding cities coming to respond to this, but then it also just puts a lot of departments on edge of what could be next, preparing, and obviously as school starts for a lot of folks here next week, I'm sure it'll be top of mind for a lot of educators who see this happen and say, oh, well, this doesn't happen here, or feeling some sort of safety. Now, a lot of kids will be heading to school next week off of this news with obviously maybe some elevated concerns.
And Hannah Ryan just let me know we got a little bit more information here. This is coming from the Associated Press, that 5 children are being treated right now. So that coming from the Associated Press, that 5 children are being treated. Our Nathan O'Neill has been staged outside of HCMC, where we believe that any victims had been taken, the trauma center there, and so we will bring you any information we can as it becomes available. But this is something that we haven't been able to report just yet, and this is coming from the Associated Press, that 5 children are being treated. So again, when we say the 20 victims, that was a report put out by the city of Richfield early on, that the officers were reporting 20 victims. That is a very wide-ranging description. We don't know, if 20 were hospitalized, that kind of thing. But just know that right now the Associated Press is reporting that 5 children are being treated after this school shooting at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis. And again, the shooter dead. There is no threat to the public, according to Richfield PD, which had to put out an alert early on before we knew that the shooter was dead. because this is an area that's nearby, described the man reportedly at the scene as a man dressed in all black, armed with a rifle. The Associated Press, we know, called the office at Annunciation School shortly after these reports started coming in around 8:30, and whoever answered the phone said that they were evacuating the students. We know from further conversation that many of those students were gathered in a gymnasium at some point to then now be reunited with their family who have been for the last, I don't know, 45 minutes or so, been streaming in to pick up their children to take them home. Also a staging area nearby for those who are arriving a little bit later as well. So these are the developments we have thus far. 10:30 here shortly. We will have a news conference with, we believe, law enforcement, perhaps the city, the governor, and then HCMC is actually holding a press conference, it looks like separately, at 11 a.m. And that's where we anticipate we'll get more information in real time on victims and conditions at about 11 o'clock.
And of course, those initial reports, is as many as 20 people potentially injured. That, of course, does not mean that they are critically injured. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were shot, but knew from the Associated Press that 5 children are being treated for some kind of something after this shooting. And just to recap our timeline a little bit, we understand that these students, it's a pre-K through 8th grade school. You're looking at the school portion right now in this video where you can see a lot of law enforcement there at the entrance. They just started school on Monday, so they've been in school for starting their 3rd day and were scheduled to potentially be in an all-school mass at 8:15 this morning, and then the first calls for a shooting, we understand from law enforcement, came in at 8:27 this morning.
We have a Rob Olson who has also now joined our coverage. Rob, let us know kind of where you are exactly and what are you seeing here as we are, what, about 2 hours now out from when the first calls came in?
We are at the corner of Garfield and 54th, so this is on the north side of the school, directly across from the school itself. The church sanctuary is just down on the other corner to my east here, and there's a large presence down there. It is down there where I understand that the news conference updating these events will be taking place here at around 10:30. But this behind me is what I believe to be right in there, the reunification zone that they established here between the church part and the school part here of Annunciation. So this is the school entrance. You can see the amount of police here. We're seeing Park Police, Minneapolis Police, obviously. A number of ambulances just to my right here. I can count 5 ambulances just to my right. And, we see here, too, as parents come to bring their children out. We've seen a number of those here, too, those situations with parents bringing their young children. And when I say young children, as you see, these are elementary-age kids predominantly that we're seeing being brought out of the school. Certainly emotional parents that we've seen are emotional. You can get through here if you need to.
Are you live?
Yeah, streaming, but we can. Okay. You can come through if you want.
The media staging area is actually on the other side.
Yep, the media staging.
And then at 10:30, there's going to be a media conference over there.
Yep. Okay.
If you go a block north and then head that way.
Yep. Media staging area.
Back to 54th, you see all the media stuff.
We're just getting an update from Minneapolis Police about the media staging area being a block to the east, as I mentioned before, and then that's where the news conference update will be coming. As you've mentioned, we do have a crew down there already set up for that as well. But at this point, the activity that we see is predominantly a lot of Minneapolis Police. So you see some more folks going into that. I can't tell who those are wearing the camouflage up there, but going into the building, around the building. Obviously, a number of different agencies out here. We saw, information that the FBI responding to with this as well, and just an enormous law enforcement presence here at the north side of the school. Again, though, we've seen throughout the last half hour or so a number of parents bringing their young children out of the school. This is the reunification area for that, and clear emotion on some of the children's faces, and certainly some of the parents' faces as well as they come out of here. Some of them just with that look of shock. Some of them with more of a tearful look to them, as well as they deal with the emotional ramifications here of what has occurred this morning at this school, Annunciation here in Minneapolis. This is a feeder school for Holy Angels. I talked to a parent who's got a daughter at Holy Angels who'd been here, but they have friends who are still here, and they're awaiting word for what is their situation, their condition, if they were involved in this at all. So, a lot of people that if they don't have kids here, they know people who do, or they know the kids who are here based on their personal connections.
Rob, this is Hannah Flood back at the studio. I just have a question for you. It looks like you're standing in front of the school portion of this property, and then behind you to the other side would be the church. Can you tell right now which building law enforcement seems to be having the most focus on? If they have folks over at the church, or it's mostly focused on that school building?
It appears to be both. I can't fully see the front of the church. Again, it is directly to my right over here. It is blocked by, like I said, 5 ambulances are here on the other side of several squad cars, sheriff's squad car, police car. There is I'm going to get out of the way here. There is a massive police and other law enforcement presence that is making its way towards this portion of the building, which again is the school portion of the building. And, it's unclear exactly what they are doing, but they are coming down here in force. I don't know if these are continuing to respond to something, or if these are people who had responded who are now no longer needed where they were.